Check, check. One there. Check, check, check. Good. All right. It's on.
Check, 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 check.
All right. Well, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started this evening. Thanks for being here. I'm really excited because tonight we have Dr. Bradley back with us.
Oh, when I saw that, I was cracking. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, man. He must be talking about my husband. I was like, oh, I forgot. That's right. That's right.
So, Diedre has a lifetime of experience in education, and so I was really excited to have her join us again. She's been in our building a couple of times before. It's been a few years, and she was a part of us with us sharing when she was principal of Shedeck Elementary. If anyone in the room went to Shedeck at some point or Independence Elementary, she was assistant principal there at one time as well. Sean, I think it was, had her at Independence, and so I was really excited to have her with us tonight. She left Yukon schools and went to work for the state education, and spent a year there, and then
came back.
and then came back, and she came back this August in the role of a director of ELL for Yukon schools. So take just a little bit, tell us about what that means. What does it mean to be ELL director, and what does that look like?
Well, ELL stands for English Language Learners. So every district has this program. It just depends on the number of students you have. And so for Yukon, we have a high percentage of Spanish-speaking families. We also have a high number, we have 48 languages that we service in Yukon. And so what our program does is we make sure that students, that the teachers and in their classrooms, that they are receiving the same services like any other student, that our teachers are equipped with training to make sure they're meeting the needs on how to educate students who are learning the language. We have English language teachers at each site, and students have to take an assessment, and based on that assessment, each year they take that assessment to assess how our program is doing. Like our students learning English, because the goal is for them to become proficient in English. And so with that also provides the opportunity for us to provide other services, not just for English language learners, but any students who need support. So like, for example, we may have a high number of students who are new to the country, who may need medical services, and so we find connections where they can receive those services. So one of the big roles that I do walk in is making sure that we have connections with the community so that we can help service our families, and also evaluate our program to make sure that we have systems in place that not only support our EL students, but to support all students. Because one of the things that we know are the systems and teaching strategies that help English language learners help all kids. They help all students. They help struggling students. They help advanced students. So these are just practices that are good for all kids. And so that's just one of the roles that I play, just to help to make sure that all students are receiving what they need, which is what our community is really great about in Yukon, is just meeting the needs of all kids. So if we find out there is a need, whether we're looking at our data from WIDA, which is a test that all English language learners have to take, to identify that while we have kids struggling in a certain area, we may need to provide our teachers with some more supports to meet those needs. And in doing that, that also helps support any kid who may be struggling in reading. So it's really exciting, and I'm glad to be able to serve our community this way.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is.
And a lot of chaos.
It is, but it's wonderful.
So why this role, but also just education in general, why did you go into that? What keeps you going with it?
Well, I share this. We have a new teacher academy for new teachers, and I had the privilege of being able to speak with them a few months ago and kind of share my story. And you all know a lot of teachers dream of being teachers. They're like, oh, they have their little classroom, they're teaching their stuffed animals, maybe their brother or their sister. Well, that was not my story. I come from a family of service leaders. My grandfather was a police officer and pastor. My mother was a missionary. My aunt was a nurse. My other aunt was an educator. So everybody in our family served the community some way. And in serving the community, which I'm sure a lot of you all know, takes a lot of time. And it also takes away from your family. And so there were opportunities where my mom wasn't able to come and see my band performance because she was at church. She was doing something. She was helping someone. And so for me, that view was, I'm not going to serve the community because the community sucks the life out of you. That was what I thought as a kid. And so when I went to OU, my degree was in Spanish. My dream was I was going to work for the UN or I was going to be an FBI agent. Because I'm like, well, I don't want to be a police officer like my grandfather, but I do like the idea of packing a gun. So, I might can be FBI, and they get to wear those cool suits. So, they got a little more power than the police. So, and plus, it's against the law to lie to a federal agent. So, I'm thinking I'm going to go that route. And my mom told me when I was graduating, probably about a few months before graduating, saying, why don't you stay in school and get your teaching certificate? No, I'm going to work for the FBI, or I'm going to be at the UN in New York. Oh, okay. All right, so needless to say, I'm not in New York. I had several jobs, and none of them, worked at a bank, did all kinds of things. And then finally, can you guess what the job was, y'all? A teacher assistant with Head Start, because it was on the South Side and they needed somebody that could speak what? Spanish. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not going to be here long because I still have high hopes and high dreams. But when I started, I found my calling. I was in love. I was in love with those kids. I was in love. I was serving families. It was like, oh my God, I am a servant. I am, Lord. I hear the call. Thank you. And so they sent me back to school to get my teaching certificate. And, I worked with Head Start for 16 years. And one of the things that I loved about that program, it was with families that were in poverty, but it was showing families how to get out. And I'm a firm believer in education is the number one way. If you want to break that cycle, it's education. And it is, for what I believe, is the only it levels the playing field for everyone. If we can make sure that everyone has a fair and equitable education, it levels the playing field for everyone. And so that's how I started there. And then next thing, of course, my mom's like, "Yeah, I told you so." So for all you kids out there, listen to your mama. Listen to your mama. My daughter now is she is going to OCCC. And she's working at her old elementary school. She's going into media and all that wonderful stuff. But I didn't tell her, like, no, be a teacher. And she's working at her old elementary school, and she loves it, but I'm not saying nothing. I'm like, oh, she's like, oh, this kid, and I love working in the library, and I subbed here, and I'm just like, oh, okay. Because I know, moms, y'all know if we tell them, what they going to do? They're going to do the opposite. So I don't say nothing. I'm just like, follow your dream, honey. Follow your dream. So that's how that then started with administration, and then I found, wow, I can help teachers because I love working with teachers, love working with families, love working with kids. And so this was like, wow, I guess, my mom did know what she was talking about. So here I am.
One of the things that really intrigued me about you when we were working with SheDeck was just what you said, that love of working with teachers. And you introduced me to a book, an author, a teacher, administrator, Ruby Payne. In fact, I get these emails from this lady named Ruby Payne, and I'm like, I signed up for it years ago now, and I'm like, why does this lady keep emailing me, like, with this information? And I was like, oh, yeah. And so... and the thing that was intriguing it just really captivated my attention, I've never been able to let go of it, was that you had all of your teachers read a book,
Mm-hmm.
Bridges Out of Poverty, and you did so because you realized what you told me is your teachers were generally blue collar
Mm-hmm.
type, and that comes with a certain mindset, way of thinking. But the majority, overwhelming majority of the students did not come from blue collar homes, and that means that they're showing up to school with other ways of thinking, processes, and also some particular what we might understand to be hurdles in
Right.
our world because of the way economics and society are shaped. And so that's always stuck with me. You're going to be you're here tonight. You're going to be sharing with us some about that because as we try to answer the question, what does it mean to walk well with people through the transitions in life of and hopefully out of poverty into these more equal playing fields, so that not just so that they leave poverty, but so that their voice matters. They can have influence in restoring creation as well. You're going to be sharing that's a big struggle for us or big question we have is how do we help families do that? We have a big dream here for a tiny home village to walk with families, and the reason we have titled this conversation series "Walk Well With" rather than just "Walk With" is because there's a difference. We've learned that in that initial moment, it feels really good to help somebody out of a crisis. But it is a lot of work day after day, week after week, and to help a whole family move out of a place of crisis and poverty. And poverty is much more than just dollars. It's relationships and much more. That's a long journey. What might be some lessons that you've learned in walking with students and families where we were reminiscing when Diedre was at SheDeck, I was mentoring. I was in year 2 of mentoring a young boy at the time, and now he's kind of becoming a young man, 8th grade, and so we were reminiscing, catching up a little bit about that. Even walking with him all these years now, most of the years have been painful for me. This year is kind of fun, where he's talking like a human, which there have been months on end where he did nothing more than grunt and groan. But talk to us a little bit. What are some lessons you've learned about what it takes to walk well with people through transition? Because that takes a long time, most of the time.
It does, and your mentorship with that young man is a perfect example of that. Because I remember when you were partnered with that young man, and I was like, preach to him, lay hands on him, do something, help this boy. But I knew that was not the right mindset because
or allowed.
Yeah, that is true. Well, I'd have been like, hey, I'm turning my head because he needs Jesus. But I knew that there was more. He had a lot of background and he had a lot of baggage that were not his issues, but they were issues that he was born into. And so oftentimes we have to learn to work with what we have. And so, which is what you did. You worked with what you had. You had this young man, and you built, number one, a relationship, which is the main thing that I always share. Whenever you are wanting to help someone out of that crisis, and I know it's so hard for us, especially when we have the resources and ability to do it. Because, you're a believer. That's what we do. We are, sons and daughters of the kingdom, and we're here to help. We're here to snatch you out if we can. But we know that sometimes that's not what's best, because if they don't have a structure in place or systems in place to support and sustain what you're trying to do, and if they have that same mindset, it's so easy for them to fall back into that cycle. And that was one of the reasons why I shared that with our teachers, because our teachers would look at our students and their experiences with their parents through one lens, like, well, why don't they do this? And why, like a good example I always think of was Popcorn Day. And Popcorn Day was 50 cents. And not all kids, and parents are like, well, it's only 50 cents. And I'm like, you don't know. That 50 cents is hard for some parents. Now, if they have 6 kids, 50 cents times 6. And back then, gas was a little cheaper, so there was a couple of gallons of gas. And so what you think is easy, so as educators, my job was I wanted to make sure that we had systems in place that would take those things off of our parents and away from our children. And so Popcorn Day, it's like, I'm going to find me a sponsor that's going to just buy popcorn, popcorn for all the kids. And so we did, and he was like, well, how much was it cost for you guys to have popcorn? I told him, and he's like, okay, popcorn for everybody. And I'm like, yay. He said, okay. But then again, I wasn't thinking further. And he said, okay, now how much does it cost to resupply your stock? And I was like, oh, you're right. Because now we done popped out popcorn. I don't have no more popcorn. And he said, so I'm going to not only pay for that, so we can take that off of a parent, so a parent's not stressing about buying popcorn, and the kid's not worrying about, well, Billy has 3 bags of popcorn and I don't have any popcorn, and then now I'm mad about it and I have an attitude, and I might steal 2 of Billy's popcorns because he really don't need them, and I'm just going to take them. And so those were some of the things that I needed our teachers to understand, looking at it through the lens of our kids. Some of our kids are coming from rough backgrounds. Some of our kids don't know where they don't know when they go home, are they going to have a home? They don't know if they're going to be sleeping at grandma's, or which is homelessness, couch homelessness, or if they're going to be at a hotel, or where they're going to be. And that's stressful. That's stressful. To have to come to school, and then you go to a class and the teacher's fussing at you because you didn't remember to bring your backpack. Well, they had to leave their home. They were evicted. They don't have a backpack. There's several stories. One mom, was a warrant out for her arrest, and so when she's working Uber Eats, they pulled her over. She had a warrant. They took the kid. The kid doesn't have his backpack. But one of the good things that I love, back again with these partnerships that we have to learn to build with our communities to help take some of these things off of our kiddos, is I will get an email that says, hey, this is one of your students. They don't go into detail. It'll say something like, and they had a police visit. And so that lets me know, number one, this kid may be shocked and scared and may come to school, with all kind of attitude. So that gives us time to prepare. And he may have on yesterday's clothes still. So that gives us time to get with the counselor and just to get things in place to support our kiddos. And so, just back to your question about how walking well, it is painful sometimes, because there are things and systems that are in place that you have to allow to play out, and there are things that are in their lives that you're not able to change, but you can only work with what you have. So I know I have them there from 7:30 to 2:30, and so as educators, our job is to make this the best possible place for them while they're there. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. And so we want to make sure that our teachers have an understanding to keep that lens wide and to understand before we start before we get frustrated, because it is frustrating and it is hard, but just to widen that lens and just think, wait a minute, let me get a little more information. Let me develop that relationship. And when you have those relationships, which is in Ruby Bridges, which with families in poverty, that is one of the main things, is those relationships, and can I trust you? And so I would say, as you guys are moving forward and walking well with people, building those relationships is going to be key. I mean, think about the relationships we walk in a lot of. We don't save, when our friends tell us, what's going on, or, we may not run in. We just are there to listen, and maybe offer some advice, but we're mainly there to listen and to provide that support when it's needed. He's thinking. I see the wheels turning.
That's good. It takes a long time to build that kind of trust too.
It does.
And one of the things, the relationship piece, one of the things about that's often a struggle is the mindset. It's often easy to come from a mindset that, so I have all the answers you need, and so I can fix you if you'll just do what I tell you to do. Most of the time as parents, we feel that way with our kids. But we can't do that to other people, especially. And so that building that trust so that they might one day say, okay, maybe there's something to what they're talking about. And it's probably going to fail along the way before they get to that point where they say, okay, I'm in. They might never. But so we're going to, for our group, we're going to shift gears a little bit from the way we normally unfold. I've asked Diedre if she would share with us from this content, this material, Bridges Out of Poverty, help us understand some things that maybe we don't even realize that we need to yet. The book's fantastic. I read it several years ago, and it opened my eyes. And so I was, Warren and I have been talking. We've been processing through how do we put this in front of us? Because if we're going to be effective, if we're going to do the kinds of things that we believe God is saying, this would glorify me if you do this, then we have some lessons to learn. Okay, and I will continue to need to learn them, and so I'm not speaking as if I have arrived. And so I've asked Diedre if she would just help us understand what they're talking about. And here's what I want you to know as she does. We are working, Warren and I, a couple others have been in the mix, Hazel has, but we are working toward the idea of starting a course that Warren will lead that hopefully will start within the next few weeks. That our goal of it is, if you feel that God would, you have gifts and abilities, you have certain understandings, and you would like to walk with families in helping them develop budgets, family budget, and processing through what all that means and how to stay on track and things like that. If you would be drawn to be a part of something like that, we'll be launching a Wednesday night class, we'll call it, to learn an approach, that we will have a unified approach as a church to help us do that, so that we're giving, we don't have holes that people would fall through as we would try to help and be helpful. And I had a wonderful experience when I was pastoring in Houston, where I was able to work with a benevolence ministry in town, and I developed a really significant plan. And I believe in what Warren and we're working for, because it was just within about a 2-year window that just with the people in our church in Houston 15 years ago now, we helped 3 families save their homes. And it's just by being strategic, being relational and strategic, and we want to see great success for the sake of families. And so our plan is that we'll continue to offer, as Joe has been leading, options on a Wednesday evening, but then we would have a second kind of track for those that would be drawn toward walking specifically in this way, because it is going to be something significant. You do almost have to have a sense of calling to do it, because it can be frustrating along the way. And so tonight is really to help us open our mindset a little bit, our understanding of some of what comes along the way in trying to do just that. So share with us about the Bridges Out of Poverty.
Well, when I first came across this, and it was when I was an intern assistant principal in Putnam City. And so this was a course that we all had to take. And when I read the book, it was so eye-opening, because I didn't understand. I think one of the biggest takeaways I received from the book was the rules. that there are rules there are set rules in poverty, there are rules for middle class, and that there are rules for wealthy. Didn't know that. I just thought, there was just poor, there's a rule. Didn't even think there were rules. And so when I read it, and then we would have to take this, if you've ever read the book, there's a survey and there's a test you take. And it's a test, and it says, like, do you know where to get a gun without any identification? Well, I didn't know that. And then it's, do you know food pantries? Like, yeah, I know food pantries. Like, do you know the best time to get bread? Do you know where the best place to wash your clothes? All these things under the list for poverty. Then it goes to middle class. And then it asks about, do you know it had, different rules for that. And then the one that intrigued me the most was the wealthy. And it was like, do you know who to call when you need to put on, it wasn't even a banquet, it was, put on a dinner when the best caterers, that was it, the best caterers. And do you know, you don't introduce yourselves, because I don't meet strangers. I'm going to go introduce myself. Hey, how you doing? My name is Diedre. Da, da, da. So I thought, I could fit in with the wealthy. No, all my stuff was totally wrong, because with wealthy, you don't introduce yourself. Somebody else introduces you. So, if I was in a room, of course, with Warren Buffett, I'm going to go introduce myself to Warren Buffett, because I want to know, what do I need, where do I need to invest my money? But no, that's not what you do. You have to be introduced, because with the wealthy, it's all about trust. Can I trust you? Can I trust you? What are you wanting from me? Because usually, people are wealthy. People want something from them. They want your money. They want your influence. And so that's what intrigued me. Like, wow, there are set rules. And so I would give these to our teachers, if they could pass the test, And it would be very interesting. They didn't understand the rules of poverty. But they could identify, like, wow, I have students. They would pass this test. I wouldn't make it. But they understood that, wow, so I really need to have an understanding where my students are coming from. So for me, that was one of the biggest takeaways. And so being a child, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, is I was a child of poverty. My mom, when she divorced her first husband, we lived in a brand new house, nice neighborhood. But when she got divorced, we were living with my grandparents. Then from there, we were living in an apartment. And then when we couldn't afford the rent, we go back to my grandparents, which I loved, because I'm like, yeah, we're my grandparents. And then when she remarried, then we moved out over here. And then when we couldn't afford it, then we moved back with my grandparents. I counted the times that I moved until when I went to college. I had moved 14 times. 14 times. That's 14 transitions. I'd been to 8 schools. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love school. It's a different time now. Now I have students who've been to 20 different places when I'm looking at their data. And I'm like, wow. And so when I go back and I think about myself, what my saving grace was, I had family. My family was middle class. But when my mom divorced, we were poor. Now, I didn't know I was poor. It's funny, I didn't know I was poor until I went to college, and I learned the level of poverty, how much we made. And I was like, oh my God, my mom is a receptionist. She doesn't make this money. I'll never forget, I was a sophomore. I called her. I was like, Mama, we are poor. We're poor. And I'm at OU. How am I at OU? We don't have no money. And she's like, yeah, baby, I know we're poor. We've been poor a long time, but God's been providing. And I was like, and we were homeless. I didn't know that. Just because I'm staying at my grandma's, that wasn't my bed. That wasn't my dresser, because we'd moved so many times. But to me, that was home, because I wanted to stay. Any grandparents in the house? Any grandparents? Let me tell you, I love my grandparents. And I couldn't wait. I was like, oh, we're being evicted? All right, I'm going to grandma's house. Yes. Now, mind you, she probably was like, oh, Lord, when is this daughter going to get it together? But I say all that to say that's why education was so important to me, because I knew the only way for me to break this is I got to get an education. I knew I can't be and my mom went to college. But she got pregnant with me. And so, back in them days, oh, well, your college time is over. I guess you're going to get married and do all those things. And so I knew I had to go to school and I had to break this poverty mindset. But I still had some poverty ways and didn't even know. So when I get married, and you're going to crack up at this, and we're paying our bills, and my husband, his mom was divorced, he's the only child, and we're paying our bills, and he writes the check to pay the electric, and I'm like, why are you paying that much? And he says, because that's how much the electric is. But don't you just pay this little bit here? He's like, no, that's just to keep your lights from being cut off. I'm like, well, why? But isn't that what we're supposed to pay? He's like, no, sweetie, we pay all the bill. And I'm like, well, why? Because then we're going to have this much money. Because we can. That's what we do. And then that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I still have, because I just saw my mom pay what she could to keep the lights from being turned off. And I'm like, oh my God. And so when I shared that with my husband, and it wasn't until later, we'll be married 30 years, this month, end of the month. And he said, my main goal was, when you would share your stories, was number 2, you're never going to be evicted, and you're never going to have your lights turned off. And I've never been evicted since we've been married. And when we moved, it was because we wanted to, because we had a brand new house being built. And we've never had anything, and my daughters have never moved. They've been in Piedmont schools all their life. And so, hallelujah. But it was only because I identified that there's some cycles that I had that needed to be broken. And that book helped me to identify and to face those issues. And you're right, it's a walk, because my mom still has some of those habits. And so it's only seeing me walk them out. And she finished school. She went back to college and finished at the age of 70 and got her degree.
How about that?
And that was my goal. I was like, Mom, you can do it, because she wanted to be a teacher. Can y'all believe that she wanted to be a teacher? And that's what she does. She teaches special ed in Oklahoma City Public Schools. So that dream, you can still finish. And so it's those things, and it may take a while, but it's those things, you got to break it. And so it takes us doing that walk and just being an encouragement and just being a pattern, but then also opening up your lens. Because I had friends who were middle class, who, in my mind, they were wealthy, but they were just probably maybe the next step. And it was just them building a relationship, not looking down on me, not trying to be like, I'm going to give you a handout, but a leg up. And it may even have been, let me look at your resume. Okay, no, you need it to be like this. Or, hey, I know of a opening somewhere. I might want to go check there. Building those relationships. And I think that as you guys are moving forward in that direction, walking with people, building those relationships and connections, and leading by example, because that's what Jesus did. He led by example. And even though he could have snatched all of us, everybody out, but he understood, I have to walk with you, because I need to pattern this for you so you can redo this. And so that's what I want to do, is just to redo that, to help somebody else how somebody helped me. To help, the saying, teach them you can give a man a fish, you only feed him for a day, but if I can teach you why when you get your tax return, don't spend it all on flat screen TVs, but again, that's part of the things with the cycles of poverty. It's about relationship and entertainment. I didn't understand this before I read the book. After tax season, all my little kiddos are coming in with brand new Air Jordans and Nike outfits, and I'm like, what the heck? But that's what it was about, my relationship. Entertainment, I love my baby. I'm going to go buy them all these Nikes, and even though I know in 2 months we're not going to have rent money, but you're walking on the rent money on your shoes. Mm-hmm. So, anything else?
Yeah. Questions? Any questions stirring?
Any thoughts? You have a question.
Yeah, Cassie?
So we have like a significant Canadian county that some of them are competing and we're not very. How much does that hinder the school system
That's a good question. One of the things that we do is with our counselors. We make sure that all of our counselors have access to the information as well. And then we also have a really great community resource person at our school, Diana Mann. And so so again, kind of back to having systems in place so that we're all not trying to figure out and find needs. And so we reach out to our community person, Diana Mann, and we might share, hey, I have a student that has this and this. What resources are available in our community that can help support this family? And even if we don't have anything, but she has connections to find other, like we don't have it, but we partner with this organization. And so it's very important because we can't do it all. We can't do it all. And that's why even we have to build relationships with other community organizations, and that's why with SheDeck, I loved partnering with the church because I knew there were certain things I knew you would be able to do. Who was the one? There were some ladies, they would always bring in us some lunch, and oh man, that was wonderful. And so partnering with organizations, finding what can you do, and then when we have that need, we're able to connect with them. Does that answer your question? And can I just say, everybody has a gift. Everybody has something, even young people over there. Everybody has something that they can contribute to help us resolve or help us meet the need. Everybody has a gift. I always share with my mom because she's the best pound cake maker that I've ever known. And so I always mess with her and say, that pound cake is solving somebody's problem. That pound cake, because I do have a former teacher who my mom would always make pound cakes for my staff. And she went to go to another school district. And then just recently, she said, your mom has ruined me from pound cakes. Somebody brought a pound cake to work, and it tasted like cardboard. I cannot eat. She's like, I can't eat it, because I'm like, I've had better. I know what it is. And so that's like with our gifts. The gifts that you have are important, no matter what it is. Even if it's just, you're the one who is the greeter at the door. Somebody needs that smile. Somebody needs those encouraging words. If you're an artist, whatever it is, somebody needs that resource that you have, that gift. So when we all put those gifts together, we're able to make such an awesome ripple effect that can help people in need and help support those people, help to support people, and help support us while we're continuing to do this work, because it's hard. It's hard doing this work. Like you said, the walk, it's hard sometimes.
What have you found that's been helpful for you to keep going? Like, because it is hard, it is difficult, it's long, it's tiring, burnout, a big deal. Even in education, we know a lot of teachers are saying, I'm out. What have been some key things for you to sustain a life of service, which really, I know for you is really more ministry, but what has been key for you, or what kinds of things?
Well, two things. Number one, I think about there are some me's out there. There are some kids out there, who need someone advocating for them. And I always think, if my mom would have had some of these resources, if my mom would have been able to have a group or organization that could have walked with her, even though we were, in a Christian home, church, all these wonderful things. But during that time, there wasn't a lot of organizations. It was very private. You walked your walk in private. But if there were organizations that could have supported her, like a divorce ministry, after you have divorced, that there's still value, and she struggled with that for a long time. Her dad was a pastor, and here she is divorced. And so I think about those things, like I have to keep going, because if I don't, who is? Now I know I'm not no baby Jesus, and I'm not trying to do it all by myself, because I understand that the role that we all play, And so if we can all connect and work together, that's such a great impact. And so that's what keeps me going, is to know that, this one little bit I'm doing is helping, even if it's just one kid. That's one kid who will be empowered with some tools and resources to help reach their dream and help accomplish our dream. Because who was I sharing with? Because, when you talk about remember your teachers, and then I thought, remember your principal. I don't remember any of my principals. I don't remember a principal.
I remember being called into mine's office once. I called home, got the answering machine,
yeah.
but it was bad when I got home.
And back then, nobody wants to go to the principal's office, but I wanted to be a principal that helped my kids, that kids wanted to come see. And so, and then when, like you said, what do you do when those days happen? Well, when you start filling so many other people's buckets, then when your bucket is low, they feel you. And I remember a day I was like, oh my God, I'm tired. Oh, let me do my duty. And then, hey, good morning, everybody. Open car doors. And one of my students, she said, Miss Bradley, I love you. I'm writing a book, and it's called The Invincible Principal. And that's who you are. And I was like, that's right, girl. I'm the invincible principal. And she's at Independence, and whenever I go, I always see her, and I'm like, girl, how's our book coming? I'm waiting on that book, and she's like, I'm still working on it, Miss Bradley, but you're still invincible. I'm like, all right, I'll still take that. And that just, and that filled my bucket, because I'm like, okay, my little people are noticing, and that little bit, who knows? She may be a great artist, and she is a great artist. She really is. She's a wonderful artist. But that little bit there, who knows? And that brings me joy, is just to know that, who knows, maybe one day, just something I said to a parent, to, one of my students, would help keep them encouraged to believe, you know what, I believe it is possible. I can be an FBI agent. I'll do it. My daughter, youngest, she wants to be an FBI agent. And I'm like, you do it, girl. Get that gun. Get that gun. Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm like, girl, you don't want to be no FBI agent. Who's going to take care of me, your dad, when we're old? Yeah. Any other questions, anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
No, please ask.
so my daughter actually took the,
Oh.
not with your school district.
Oh, okay.
We left you contact.
Yeah, this is Weeda time, honey. Yes.
It was pure Hades.
Yes.
But you said you had 48 languages, and I know papers for languages, but not ours, because we're
Oh, okay.
a public school district. My daughter, we're Flemish, not many people are.
Yes.
That's an issue.
Yes, it is a issue. Like, I didn't even know it were so many. Like, I learned a new language, which is called Karen, and it's based from, because I was like, huh?
Karen?
Yeah, not Karen,
Not
not those Karens.
Not those people.
No, not those Karens.
Not
But it is a language, and it is Karen, and it is, I can't remember, because I was like, is that for real? And so and it's like a very small number of people who can speak it, but I have a family, and that's all they speak.
Wow.
And so, yes, and so some of the issues we have are because we want to make sure, because again, we're big on building partnerships and relationships, and we want families to feel connected and welcomed. And so having someone that can speak your language, because it's scary. I can't imagine if I had to go to another country with my family, and you're in school and there's no one there that you can connect with. So yes, so some of the things we're working with is finding, like some of our parents, like I know I have parents that speak different languages, and so partnering with them on how to interpret and translate, and then connecting them with those families so they feel like they have someone who they can connect with, and then just making sure that the translation programs that we do have, that we can translate parent information in the family's native language so that they will always know what's going on in the school. And then there's another program, Google Translate, but we know it doesn't translate everything, but we work with what we have. And then there's another program that I've heard a lot of schools use where you can call in. It's like a number and you will talk to someone. Now, I haven't never had that program, but I've heard a lot of people use it. But yes, and there's, like I say, there's so many languages, and it does cause a challenge.
You referenced a number of languages, and I must have missed it. How many languages in
48.
Yukon? In
48.
Yukon. Wow.
I have a question, because like when we fill out our paperwork, there's 5 different languages. Would that 5 count my daughter, or does that mean that there are
Like if you put
we have 5 languages in our household?
5 languages, that one would be like there's a spot on there that says like other, like there's a multiple. Because I have one student, his mom speaks Spanish and the dad speaks Greek. And then he also speaks English, so they have 3 languages going on. And he's only in the 2nd grade. And so it's like he's got a lot of languages going on there. And so just finding ways to make sure that he's supported and that the parents are supported as well.
And what needs typically in a that aren't being met?
Well, I think right now with us still just trying to recuperate from all of the wave of when we had COVID, and then what that did is kind of pull the blanket back on a lot of challenges that we were having, and we didn't realize certain inequities that were happening in our school districts. And I think right now the biggest thing we have is just making sure that we have teachers. That is our biggest hurdle right now, is making we have qualified teachers. Because as we have a mass exodus of teachers that are leaving, and then having emergency certified, which there's nothing wrong with that, but then that is a process. Now I have to make sure that my emergency certified teacher has all the skills and things necessary to meet the needs of our kids. And then when you add on the challenges in a classroom, because it's an art to teaching, it is an art to it, and so that takes time to make sure that our new teachers have those skills that they need. So we're working towards those, and then I think also just right now, just making sure that our parents are well informed with right information. I know one of the biggest things that I felt was misinformation of making where parents felt like they didn't have a right. They've always had a right. They've always had access, but I think they just didn't know that they did. And so I think we have to do a better job of making sure parents understand you have a right to that. I've sat in, as a principal, I've sat in on all our board meetings, and there was never hardly any parents there. But that's really are the ones who make the decisions, is your school board. It's your school board. And so, but it's not until there's a problem, then the school board meetings are full. But we should be full all the time, every time we meet. So I think just making sure that we continue to build our parent teachers relationships so that we can all learn. We are all on the same page. Everybody wants what's best for all our kids. And so I think when we can do a better job of that.
And I have one more, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just wondering how churches could help foster a sense of inclusivity and graphic or groups that churches are missing that we need to be reaching out to. Okay? And specifically to Yukon, around we see a lot of Caucasian people
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to be able to have more inclusivity here and be able to reach graphics. So I wonder if that was it.
And I think just being, when we talk about that, is being welcoming and making sure that people feel welcome and included. And so I think when you continue to have open invitations like the things that you have tonight, Walk Well and different community events, making sure that it's in different languages. They have "Se hablo español," like we speak Spanish. And, you all may not speak Spanish, but you are in partnership with people who do, so that you would have people there that would be able to translate. And so then when you have those kind of opportunities, and then it's like, okay, I feel welcome here. So what do? Spread word of mouth, and then now more people begin to come. But I've always felt like the best advertisement is you as an individual. When they see your light shining, and they see how, we model and glorify our Heavenly Father, then people want to be a part of that. They know and they see, you're struggling with, like, man, I know what she's going through, and she's still representing the kingdom. Where do you go to church? They want to come. They want to investigate. They want to inquire. So I've always felt like the best way to do that is be the best representation of the kingdom. And that makes people want to come.
Some of us are not teachers and should never
Oh, yes.
dream of being teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I am one of them. How can we partner with teachers?
Oh, man, there are so... Yes, they still have helping hands. And one of the things that I love that UConn does that I haven't seen any other districts do that I've been a part of, is how they have different ways to support teachers. Because like you say, everybody can't sub. Everybody may not want to sub. Like you say, sometimes I don't even want to go. I'm like, oh, Lord, not today. But there are other ways, like you say, whether it's helping hands, whether it's just finding out what teachers need, whether I know one of the things that the church would always help out with was like parent-teacher conference nights, whether it was providing something special, that a project that the teacher was doing. But I think one of the best things is being a part of the PTO when they have different events, supporting that way. But like you say, partnering with the helping hands, or not helping hands, the community, or what is that one called? It's another name. I have so many organizations and acronyms in my mind. Oh, what is that? What is it? No, not that. With Diana Man, what do we call? Thank you. Yes.
I was
like,
just thinking Miller Mentor, because that's
yeah,
what I do.
I was like, not Miller Mentor, but all of those are up under community engagement. Thank you. And so up under community engagement, there are several ways that you can partner with it. Even if it is, like, I know they have project graduation coming up soon, different things like that, but going on the community engagement side, and even just reaching out with Diana Mann. And if there's a particular school you're interested in, call that principal. They will be able to tell you exactly where their school needs the most support. Like I said, when I would get those calls, and there would be different things, it just depended on who it was. Like if it was, I remember a church call, they said, hey, I have our men's group, and we're carpenters, we're this, what do you need? Well, I have a bench out here that, I can't afford to buy a new one. So what did they do? They all came down, bought the new boards, and took the old one apart and rebuilt it again. And so, things like that. Like I said, everybody has a gift. Somebody needs that gift. Just kind of reach out and find out. Those are good questions, though. What about you young people? Y'all have any questions? No? What are some state resources? Well, with the state, like there are certain funds, what we have, which is called, like when we deal with EL, which is called Title III. And so there are funds from the federal government that goes through the state that comes to us that helps fund our projects, like our parent engagement night, when I want to hire additional bilingual teachers, there's a certain budget that I have, like you have X amount of dollars to provide parent engagement, to hire teacher training, to meet the needs of our kiddos. And so there's that funding. And then the other state resources is we partner with community engagement when I have, like I've had students who have just come in from Mexico who have no supplies, no resources, and so I'm able to partner with our community engagement. I'm like, hey, I need glasses, I need backpacks, I need some clothes. Oh, and by the way, this student is on an IEP. Are there any doctors, they need a diagnosis, like, and they need x-rays, they need all these things, and I need it in 30 days. And so they're like, okay, here's a list of the doctors, the programs, and organizations in our state that would be able to provide that. And they just recently had, in like dental work, that is a big one, because y'all know, I have a kid in braces now. It's expensive. And so when we have kiddos that need a lot of dental work, there are some organizations. There was one just in Lawton over the weekend where the dentists get together and provide like cleanings and root canals. And so it's just being in partnership and connection with those organizations, and they send us that information, and then we share that out with our counselors, and then they share it out with our families. And then we also try to also post it, because it's always about knowing. A lot of these resources are available, a lot of our families don't know about, you know, and so we have to get the word out to them so that we know, because these are the things that also help break these cycles, because we know dentists work, that takes money out of, you know, rent and all these things, and then sometimes they just will have to suffer and have hurt teeth. Yes? Oh man, yes I do. Like I said before, I was mainly pre-K, and then I went to 4th and 5th grade, and then I went back to pre-K to 3rd grade, and so now I'm over all the schools, which is really fun, because I was just in the high school not too long ago, and I heard a student, Miss Bradley, and I'm like, hi, you remember me? I'm like, you refresh my memory. And then I'm thinking, oh God, I hope I didn't suspend you. Oh Lord, I hope. Teacher like, no, you were my favorite principal, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, good deal. How are you? And of course, how are you doing? Are you making good grades? Are you making good choices? Yeah, I'm getting ready to graduate. Well, what are you gonna do? All those kinds of conversations. I'm proud of you. Keep it up, but yes. And I think that's one of my biggest joys. It's like, man, I've been in this a long time. You graduating? Yeah, and I have a job. I'm like, awesome. Can I get, when you get paid? Hey, I love Sonic. Give me a Sonic gift card. So, no. But yes, I do. What school do you go to? UConn High School.
I know where he ate lunch today.
Oh.
And I know where the guy across the table from him ate lunch today, too.
Oh.
Different lunch hours.
Man,
My lunch hour, it went past both of theirs.
Man, I try not to go in when the bell rings, because they are so tall. And I think, were we tall like that in high school? I mean, the girls are tall, the guys are tall, everybody's tall. And I'm like, man. I'm like.
Yeah.
So y'all get ran over? I believe it. Yeah, I guess it's the milk y'all drinking. It's obviously I didn't drink that milk. I didn't get the height.
Yeah. Any other questions for Diedre before we call it an evening?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you all so much for inviting me, and I always love coming because you all are doing such great work, and you're always looking for ways to continue to expand your capacity to serve. You know, you think out the box, and I love that. You know, you think out the box of what can we do? How can we be better? How can we serve better? And if more churches did that, man, we could change the world. And so I just want to commend you all. Keep up the great work. You're doing amazing things. And I appreciate you on behalf of UConn Schools, whatever capacity you're serving in. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we need you. So keep up the good work. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I want to pray for you before we.
Oh, yes. 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 Yes, we have a lot of data that we use to track, all of our, there's so much data out there, we're data rich with information, but it's like, okay, now what are we going to do with it? Because we do know that when we provide services and support the whole child, the whole student, that we have positive outcomes. But just like you said, that kind of walk takes time and it costs money. And it costs money, and it's like until we realize our kids are worth the investment. Our kids are our greatest resources. And when we begin to have that vision and understanding that they are our greatest resources, I think we will be happy to make that investment, because I know that by me making that investment in you, that you are also going to be a participant in our community, in our society, whether it's with a job or an entrepreneur or going to school. I mean, whatever it is, you're going to be a contributor. And so I want to make sure that you have all the skills necessary to be able to contribute in a meaningful way, but also to be resilient, because we know we're going to have problems. I mean, we grown and we still have problems, but we're resilient, and we know how to bounce back, and we know how to get our resources to help us. And so, yes, we have it, and we do the best we can, but with what we have, but it takes a lot to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 Well, a lot of our data, some of the things that you all would have access to, like you can actually go on and look at a school report card, and some of that data is there. Like it will give you the percentage of our economically disadvantaged kiddos, and you can look at all the different diversity of students that we have, our different subgroups, which are like our EL population, and you're able to look at all of that. And even going on the State Department website, you can see a lot of that data. Like we have a high number of our students here in Oklahoma live in poverty. Over 50% of our students live in poverty, and we know with that comes a certain amount of challenges. And so, but it costs money to be able to put money towards there, and sometimes it's difficult to, like you say, to help shift the mindset of, I mean, these are our issues. I mean, this is what we have, this is the data that tells us that, and this is what we need to do to help that. But sometimes we have a hard time shifting our focus because we want to just see that, oh, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Y'all need to figure it out. But what if you don't have no bootstraps to pull yourself up with? What if you don't have no shoes? I want to pull myself up, but I don't have any shoes to pull myself up with. So, yes. So that is a good place to start, and you can look at our whole state as a whole. You can look at districts, you can look at schools. It is all there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yes, back to you, please. I welcome all prayers.
So before I pray, if you would be interested in being a part of what we hope to pull together, of a team that would become coach and mentor to specifically this first piece, walking with people from a budgeting kind of that side of thing, the financials side, we're wanting to begin to put that together. If you're interested in being a part of that, make sure you talk with Warren. Because he's going to be really leading the charge for us with that, and brings a lot of great years of community service, understanding, and systems from his missionary days and teaching days even currently for the last decade. So make sure you talk with Warren if you'd be interested in that.
Who's Warren? Where's Warren?
Warren right here, Warren Neal.
Oh,
So,
all right.
but make sure you connect with him. Let's pray, and we'll let you go. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for today and for this evening and the chance to be together. God, we give thanks for Diedre and a life of service that she has had and continues to have. We thank you, Lord, for placing your breath in her, that as she walks the hallways and deals with situations that seem overwhelming and are paralyzing even to children and families, God, I pray that your breath would work through her to give life and to restore life. And so we give thanks that one of yours is in the place like she is at. We pray, God, that you would use her personality and her walk with you and her great influence to be about the redeeming work in our community, restoring broken and tattered homes and families to wholeness. And we pray, God, for her family. Would you continue to protect them? Would you continue to bless them, Lord, as they give their lives to you? Help us, God, I pray, that as we continue to try to take these steps forward to being more than just a people who gather on Sundays and a people who gather on Wednesdays, but to being a people who have a consistent influence and impact on our community. God, we pray that you would open doors, that you would give us discernment, and that we would be faithful to take steps of faith when that is what's called of us. God, this I pray. We give thanks for your great love for us. May we be those who love likewise, I pray. Amen.
Amen.